Today I want to share with you the 15 most important tools that I think every DIYer should have in their toolbox. Now, this list that I'm starting with is my 15. I did this without looking at what anybody else thinks. This is based entirely off of what I use most frequently for just home projects of any kind. Everything from hanging pictures on the wall to literally like building stuff on my house. These are the tools that I go to the most often. But I was also curious how my thoughts compared to what other people say. So we use Google's AI to figure out what are the 15 most common tools according to the AI, based off of all the sources that it could find, what it thinks people think are the 15 most important tools. And then we also checked with Reddit. We went through basically every poll and every post we could find where people talk about the most important tools and looked for what comes up most frequently and ranked those based on, again, how frequently they show up in the comments. It's gonna be really interesting to see those lists because I haven't looked at them yet. I had a friend put those together for me. I don't know what other people say. I'm just gonna walk you through my 15 and then I get a look at their list. So without any further ado, let's get started. The number one most frequent tool that I use that you absolutely need as a DIYer is a tape measure. A tape measure is used so frequently on so many different things, you gotta have a tape measure. In fact, when I worked as a plumber's assistant years ago, the expectation was I just always had one on my belt. He'd have his own tape, he'd set it down, he'd like, hand me yours. The expectation was I always had a tape measure on me, no matter what. I've got two different ones here. One is kind of standard, where you pull the tape out and then there's a little locking mechanism and it'll hold it there. I think that's important to be able to lock it. This one's kind of cool. The concept is cool. It's made by Stanley. It's their lever lock system. You pull it out and it's supposed to just stay. And it does a pretty good job, but sometimes it doesn't. And then the idea is when you push on the lever, then it comes back. So it's always somewhat locked. I found that to be really, really convenient when it works. It's just sometimes it kind of wants to go back even when I'm not pressing on the lever. Number two, I use this all the time, is you need to have some sort of drill. I prefer a battery-powered cordless electric drill, but actually what I prefer over even a drill, what I use more frequently than the drilling is actually the screwing, and for that, I prefer an impact driver. Mine went missing. I don't know if somebody borrowed it or if I put it somewhere or what. It's been gone for like a year, and I keep wanting to just go get a new one, but then I'm like, oh, it's gonna turn up. I just moved, it still hasn't turned up. I think it's time to go buy a new one. And I've been stuck using just the drill, and it's really made me realize how much I love the impact driver. So oftentimes they come in a set of two. If you're getting one, you might as well just get both. Number three, I'm gonna say, is a level. You gotta have a level. There's so many different things. Again, like the most common things I'm often doing is either building something or hanging something on the wall. And in both cases, I need a level. There are a lot of instances where a little torpedo level like this is just not enough. In that case, you know, having a longer 4-foot long level is really handy. But honestly, for getting by, as long as you just have something that's gonna work, it's probably gonna be good enough, but you gotta have one. So go get yourself a little torpedo level. Most of these tools I'm talking about today are cheap. The electric ones, maybe not so much. Next up, number four, a screwdriver set. Now, what I've got here is actually a set. So this doesn't have any end on it. It's magnetic, which is nice because then everything that goes in it stays pretty well. But I like this because with this one screwdriver, it's actually pretty inexpensive. I have a lot of bits. You can see here on the table, I've got square heads, which is great for electrical stuff. They're used really common. I've got hex heads. So there's my Allen wrenches right there. I got Phillips. I got two things of Phillips because they're used so much that people lose them a lot. I know I do. Flatheads, and then Star or Torx. And then I've also got these nut driver ends as well, which actually I use a lot too. You can also just go get a set of screwdrivers, some Phillips and flatheads. Sometimes they'll come with a couple of squares, maybe some star-shaped ones. That can be really handy too. I really like that they often also come with a couple little tiny ones, which are really helpful for small things. But you gotta have screwdrivers. And then next, as a DIYer, especially as somebody who's constantly fixing stuff, a set of clamps. I use these all the time. If you need to glue something back together, a piece of furniture or a picture frame or whatever that fell and broke, having a set of clamps is key to getting that glue to actually set well. If you can clamp it together, you can get the glue to set. They do make clamps like for picture frames that are kind of corner clamps. I've got some of those. I got some long clamps that I use for furniture and stuff, but just get some. And then you can expand maybe your clamp collection as you find a need for some of those bigger clamps. But maybe just start off with a couple of smaller basic ones. I've got 4 in this size. Okay, we're gonna go through the other 10 a lot quicker now. A crescent wrench, mostly because you need end wrenches for stuff. A lot of the time, one crescent wrench can cover a wide range. A crescent wrench is usually not the best tool for the job, but honestly, it's that or having a whole set of end wrenches, which might be worthwhile. Then channel lock pliers. Again, there are a lot of instances like, well, so many different things where I need to screw something together or unscrew something that's bigger. And these channel locks give me a range of being able to unscrew things that are small all the way up to big and everywhere in between. So having just some channel locking pliers like this is key. Then needle nose pliers for little stuff. People use these all the time. A utility knife. I've got one right here. This is a folding style one. Some are folding, some are not. But having a utility knife, I use it for so many different things. It's just really handy to have. Keep a utility knife around. I put putty knife on the list. You can use this to fill holes in wood, you're replacing some trim or something like that. You're patching holes in your walls, so drywall stuff. One little putty knife like this can do a lot of different things. I use it a lot. So if you ever need to fill holes in your wall, especially, just one little putty knife like this is gonna be really handy. Next, I put on the list a socket set. I just have one ratchet size and then a few of the sockets just to kind of show that. But I've got a full set here. This is a socket set. It's got end wrenches and a bunch of other things. It's got a screwdriver set actually in it as well. And so one toolkit like that is a little bit pricey, but it's gonna cover your sockets, your end wrenches, a lot of things, at least for kind of the mid-standard ranges. I have found that I've needed to go buy some larger sockets and some larger end wrenches as I have a need for them. So getting a basic kit to get you started though can do a lot for you. Next, I have a hammer. I have learned that I like the straight back on the hammer. It's way better for demolition. I don't have this higher up the list because honestly, I screw things together a lot as a DIYer. Hammering is more like when I'm framing things or demolishing things, I just don't find myself nailing stuff together nearly as often as screwing things. But a hammer is still a valuable tool and one that you'll probably use pretty frequently. Next, I have a circular saw. As far as saws go, a circular saw is really versatile. Most things that I can use a table saw for, or I can use a miter saw for, I can get away with a circular saw, even if it's not quite as good. But there are also some things where a table saw would be a pain, but a circular saw works great. So a circular saw can be a great way to go. It costs less than any of those others and can do a lot of the things. Next, I have a wire stripper. If you're gonna do anything electrical, you're gonna need one of these. So get yourself a decent wire stripper and have that in your toolbox. And then my last thing is I have an Allen set here. I included standard, metric, and Torx. Now, the screwdriver set that I showed you also has a lot of these. It doesn't have as many sizes as these sets, but if you have a screwdriver set like that, honestly, you could probably get by without putting these in your toolbox for now. Eventually, you might need some of the bigger sizes and stuff, but honestly, most of the time, I can get away with the hex heads that are here. That'll cover most of what I need Allen-wise, and then the star shape or the Torx heads that come in here is gonna cover, again, most of my needs. It's only every now and then that I need something that isn't in that set. And those are my 15. Now I'm curious to see what stands out. So our next list here, this comes from Google's AI. So take a look at that list compared to mine. Looking at these top 5, a couple things that stand out to me. Its number 1 and 2 are the same as mine. I feel pretty good about that. I feel validated. Beyond that, they have drill bits. I kind of included that. If I buy a drill, I'm gonna buy a set of bits that go with it. Some of the basic ones, Phillips bits. Maybe Phillips square and Torx are gonna be the most common. They also put hammer and screwdriver further up the list than I did, but I agree with those things. Looking at the rest of their list, 6 through 10, let's look at that. Utility knife, yep, pliers. I broke those out into a couple different ones. A level, stud finder, that's a good one. I didn't put that on my list of top 15, but I do use a stud finder pretty frequently. And then an adjustable wrench, a crescent wrench. Let's look at 11 through 15. They put a hand saw. I don't use a hand saw nearly as often as I use a power saw, like a circular saw. I would get a circular saw over a hand saw for sure, especially if I was gonna get everything on the list. They put safety gear. I didn't think of that as a tool, but really, getting some safety glasses, appropriate gloves for the work you're doing, and maybe hearing protection, those 3 things, that's most of the safety gear you need most of the time. Sometimes it's good to have a face mask or a respirator, especially when you're dealing with a lot of sawdust. They put clamps on their list. They also put multi-tool. I grabbed mine because this is an honorable mention. I actually have another video where I talk about this tool because it's incredibly versatile. I didn't put it in my list because honestly, it's not my go-to most of the time because I have a lot of the other tools that I need to do other jobs that work better than the multi-tool. But there are a few specific things that the multi-tool is the best tool for, and I do use it for those. And then they have the circular saw like me. So not too bad. Let's see what Reddit thinks. Okay, number 1, tape measure. Man, 3 for 3. And number 2, power drill. Then they also put hammer. They put tape, just tape. All different kinds of tape, masking tape, duct tape. I didn't include that as a saw or as a tool. That's more like a resource that I have on hand. It's kind of like saying, well, I need a lot of paper. That's how I feel about it. But I do agree, you need a lot of tape. Caulk gun. I have a video about caulking as well that is super helpful, by the way. If you need to do some caulking, it's gonna show you ways to make that job way easier. But a caulk gun is a good honorable mention. I don't know if it's in my top 15. A framer's square. I do like that. A framer's square can be really nice. A lot of times they also have a level in them as well. I do use one pretty frequently. That's a good one. Again, maybe not, they've got it in their top 10. I don't know that it quite makes my top 15 even, but it's up there. They also included a level, an adjustable crescent wrench, like I did, a multi-tool. They included a multimeter. For electrical work, a multimeter is a great tool to have. I got a video about how to use those. There's a lot of things that a multimeter can do that you might not have thought of. So you might want to go watch that video if you're thinking about getting a multimeter. Interesting that they didn't put wire strippers. Like, if you're gonna be doing any electrical work, you're gonna need one of these, maybe even before you need a multimeter. I certainly use the wire strippers more than I use the multimeter. Drill bits and drivers, interesting they broke that out as well. Channel lock pliers, read it, you did all right there. Vice grips. So vice grip pliers are just like a locking plier. They're handy, probably not in my top 15, but a good tool. And then a small air compressor. I also like this. That's an honorable mention. It might be in my top 20. A small air compressor can be really handy. I use it for a lot of different things, from filling up kids' bike tires. Well, not just kids. I have a bicycle too, but filling up bike tires, air tools that I have, to just blowing stuff off. Yeah, I've got an air framing nail gun, actually a full set of nail guns. I've got a paint spray kit that's air driven. I find myself using air pretty often. An air compressor can be handy. I don't use it as often as the other tools that are here on the table. So it's not in my top 15, but it's a good honorable mention, maybe in my top 30. So there you have it. Those are the top tools you should have in your toolbox today if you want to consider yourself a DIYer. What did I miss? Tell me in the comments. I want to know, what would you put in your toolbox that's different from me? And what did I put on my list that you think is maybe a waste of your space or money if you're just getting started? As always, thanks for joining me today here on Fixter. If you like practical advice for DIYers, that's what this channel is all about. You might want to subscribe. We got a lot of great content already on the channel and even more coming out. We'll see you all in our next video.